This video will be a note-for-note breakdown of the main guitar solo that enters roughly 2 minutes and 8 seconds into the song. A tab sheet of the solo will briefly be displayed after the note-by-note analysis. The supporting rhythm guitar and bass parts will also be detailed later in this video. The tuning used in this video and on the record is standard E and 440 wavelength calibration. This solo is going to be 8 measures long. We're going to start out by placing the first finger on the low E string on the first fret right behind the nut. On 1, we're going to pick this downwards and slide up to the 8th fret as we do it. Once there, we're going to let it ring out for 3/4 of the first measure. What this is a dotted half note. Here's what it's going to sound like. 1, 2, 3. On 4, we're going to shift down in pitch and place the 3rd finger on the D string at the 7th fret. We're going to pick that down on 4 and let it ring out as an 8th note. To finish up the first measure, we're going to place the 1st finger on the same string at the 5th fret and pick this up on the last and beat of the measure. After we pick this note up, we're going to let sustain out into the 1st quarter of the next measure. This last note is actually tied to the first note of the next measure. With a 4-count lead in, here's what the first measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Okay, now we're in the second measure. On 2, what we're going to do is shift back up in pitch and place that first finger on the G string at the 7th fret. We're going to pick this down on 2 and let it ring out as an 8th note. On the end beat right after 2, we're going to place the middle finger on the D string at the 8th fret and pick it upwards. After we pick this 8th note upwards, we're going to let it ring out into 3. Basically, this 8th note is tied to the quarter note on 3. It's actually going to ring out for 3/8 of a measure. On 4, we're going to pick the open D string downwards. We're going to finish up the measure by playing a double stop, okay? This is on the end beat right after 4. We're going to place the first finger on the B string at the 8th fret and the 3rd finger on the G string at the 10th fret. We're going to pick this upwards, and as we do it, we're going to bend with that 3rd finger so the G string sounds like the B string, the note on the B string. What this is a unison bend. We bend it so both notes are the same pitch. Here's what that is going to sound like. Just like that. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the first 2 measures combined are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. And now we start the 3rd measure. As we finished up the last measure, we did a unison bend. What we're going to do here to start the 3rd measure is let that unison bend ring out through 1 to start the 3rd measure. That's going to be an 8th note. On the and beat right after 1, we're going to play another 8th note on them same 2 strings. Well, the G string is still bent up in pitch. We're going to pick this upwards. On 2, we're going to go back to the natural unbent position of that note and play this double stop with 2 more 8th notes picked down, up, counted 2 and. With the 4-count lead in, here's what we have there so far for the 3rd measure. And I'm going to include the unison bend that would be at the end of the 2nd measure. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2, and. Okay, from this point, what we do is place the middle finger on the G string at the 9th fret. The 1st finger is going to stay right where it is on the B string at the 8th fret. We're going to play another double stop. We're going to do this in the form of 3 more 8th notes, counted 3 and 4, picked down, up, down. On the last eighth note of the measure, we're going to pick the open D string upwards. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the third measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, in, 3, in, 4, in. Now we start the fourth measure. We're going to do 4 more eighth notes here. We're going to shift down in pitch and place the first finger on the G string at the 7th fret and the middle finger on the D string at the 8th fret. The first 2 beats are going to be on this double stop, counted 1 and picked down and up. Okay? And on 2, we're going to do another 8th note. We'll pick the open D string downwards. On the and beat after 2, we're going to play that double stop again, picking it upwards. After we play this last double stop, it's going to be tied to a half note and ring out for the rest of the measure. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the third and fourth measures combined are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, in, 3, in, 4, in, 1, in, 2, in, 3, 4. Let's run through the first 4 measures in sequence just one time. I'm not going to count aloud as I play. I'll just give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have reached the 5th measure. We're going to begin by playing a series of 8 16th notes, which will be the first half of the measure. On 1, we're going to place the first finger on the A string at the 7th fret. We'll pick this down. On E, we're going to hammer on with the third finger to the 9th fret on that same string. The second 16th note is produced entirely by the left hand. We're not picking the string again to do it. On the and beat, we're going to go up a string in pitch with that first finger on the same fret. We're going to repeat that process. We'll pick that down and hammer on to the 9th fret of that same string with the third finger. That's the A beat. Here's what the first 4 notes are going to sound like. 1 E and out. On 2, we're going to go up another string in pitch, place that first finger on the G string at the 7th fret. We're going to repeat that process one more time. We're going to hammer on with the third finger to the 9th fret of that same string on the E beat. After that, we're going to slide up to the 11th fret on the and beat of that same string. We're going to finish up that second series of 4 16th notes by pulling off to the first finger on that same string at the 9th fret. Notice in the second series of 4 16th notes that only the first one is picked. The other 3 are produced by the left hand. They're counted 2 E and A, just like this. 2 E and A. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the first half of the 5th measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E and 2 E and A. Okay, now we're going to shift up a half a step in pitch and place that first finger on the B string at the 10th fret. We're going to play 4 eighth notes to finish up this measure. We're going to pick this down on 3. On the and beat after 3, we're going to place that third finger on the same string at the 12th fret and pick that up. On 4, we're going to pick down as we're playing the first finger on that same string at the 10th fret. To finish up the measure, we're going to place that third finger back on the B string at the 12th fret. And we're going to tuck the pinky right underneath that third finger on the high E string of the same fret. We're going to pick these 2 strings upwards and bend a full step as we do it. As we do this bend, we're going to let it sustain out into the first quarter of the next measure. These notes are actually tied together. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the 5th measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now to finish up the 6th measure, we're going to play 3 more notes. On 2, we're going to place the first finger back on the B string at the 10th fret. We'll pick this down. That'll ring out as a 16th note. On the E beat right after 2, we're going to place that middle finger on the G string at the 11th fret. We'll pick this up. On the AND beat right after E, we're going to go back to the B string at the 10th fret with that first finger and pick it down. This is going to ring out for the rest of the measure. It's actually going to be tied to a half note that rings through 3 and 4. This is how these last 3 notes will be counted. 2 E and 3, 4, just like that. With the 4 count lead in, here's what the 5th and 6th measures combined are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 E and 3, 4. And now we have reached the 7th measure. We're going to begin by playing a series of 8 16th notes that require alternate picking. This will be the first half of the measure. We're going to start out by placing the first finger on the high E string at the 14th fret. We'll pick this down. On the E beat, we're going to go with the pinky to the B string at the 17th fret. This will be picked up. On the AND beat, we're going to place the middle finger on that same string at the 15th fret and pick it down. On the beat, we're going to go to the first finger on the same string at the 14th fret and pick that up. These first 4 16th notes will be counted 1 E and a, just like this. 1 E and a. On 2, we're going to go back to the 15th fret on the B string with the middle finger and pick it down. On the E beat, we'll go to the first finger on that same string at the 14th fret and pick it up. On the AND beat, we're going to place that third finger on the G string at the 16th fret and pick it down. And on the beat, we're going to go back to the first finger on the B string at the 14th fret and pick it up. These last 4 16th notes are counted 2 E and a, just like this. 2 E and a. With the 4 count lead in, here's what the first half of the measure sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E and a, 2 E and a. Okay, on 3, we're going to place that middle finger on the G string at the 16th fret and the third finger on the B string at the 17th fret. We're going to pick this double stop downwards and let it ring out as an 8th note. We're going to bend it up a full step in pitch as we do it. On the AND beat right after 3, we're going to repeat that process, but this time we're going to let that double stop ring out as a quarter note. To finish up the 7th measure, we're going to pick the open G string upwards on the last 8th note of the measure, right after 4. With the 4 count lead in, here's what the 7th measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 and 4 and. Now we go to the 8th measure. We're going to shift down in pitch and place the first finger on the B string at the 5th fret and the third finger on the G string at the 7th fret. What we're going to do is pick this double stop downwards on 1 and let it ring out as an 8th note as we bend it up in pitch is a unison bend. On the AND beat right after 1, we'll let that note sustain out as we bend it back down. So basically we have 2 8th notes sounded by 1 picking technique, just like this. 1 and, just like that. 1 and. On 2, we're going to place that first finger on the G string at the 5th fret, pick it down, it's going to ring out as an 8th note. On the 8th note, right after 2, we're going to slide all the way up to the 14th fret on that same string, and we're going to let that ring out for the rest of the measure, the 3 and 4 beats. What that is the last 8th note is tied to a half note. With the 4 count lead in, here's what the 7th and 8th measures combined are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Let's run through measures 5 through 8 in sequence just one time. I won't count aloud as I play. I'm just going to give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's run through the entire solo just one time. I won't count aloud as I play. I'll just give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the rhythm guitar, we're going to play chords for the first 4 measures of the solo. What we're going to do is we're going to play them as whole notes and let them ring out for a full measure. The first chord that we're going to play, we'll take the first finger and place it on the A string at the 3rd fret. This is a C note. That's the root note of the chord. The 3rd finger, we're going to lay it across the D, G, and B strings at the 5th fret and bar them. Okay, these 4 strings are going to produce a C major chord. We don't want to strum it like this. We want to strike it kind of slow like this. Okay, and we're going to let that ring out for the first measure. On the second measure, we're going to take the middle finger and place it on that same C note on the A string at the 3rd fret. The first finger will go on the D string at the 2nd fret. The 3rd finger will go on the G string at the 3rd fret, and the pinky will go on the B string at the 3rd fret. Both the open E strings are going to ring open on this chord. I don't know the name of it, but it's going to sound like this. Once again, we're going to let it ring out for the entire second measure. On the 3rd measure, we're going to go back to the C major. In the 4th measure, we go back to this jazzy chord. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the first 4 measures are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The next 4 measures are going to follow a 2-measure long riff pattern, actually the main riff of the song. We're going to start out by placing the first finger on the D and G strings at the 2nd fret. This is going to be an open A5 power chord. We'll pick this down on 1, let that ring out as a quarter note. On 2, we're going to take an 8th note rest. On the and beat after 2, we're going to put that middle finger on the low E string at the 3rd fret and pick this up. That's an 8th note. On 3, we're going to go back to the A5 power chord. That's going to be a quarter note. On 4, we have another 8th note rest. And on the last and beat of the first measure, we're going to go back to this G note and pick it up. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the first measure of that riff pattern is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and now we're in the second measure of the riff pattern. What we're going to do is play a open D5 power chord. We're going to do this as 2 8th notes picked down and up on one hand, just like this, one hand. And we're going to have an 8th note rest on 2. You'll see me take the heel of my hand or the side of my hand and dampen the strings for an 8th of a beat. And on the and beat after 2, we're going to play the open A5 power chord again, pick it up, and let it ring out for the rest of the measure. With a 4-count lead in, here's what measures 5 through 8 are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. Let's run through all 8 measures of the rhythm guitar part just one time, with a 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. For the first 4 measures on the bass guitar, we're going to toggle between 2 notes. The C note located on the A string at the 3rd fret, where you're going to use the middle finger. And the G note is the 2nd note. That will be on the low E string at the 3rd fret. We're going to use the 1st finger. What we're going to do here is toggle back and forth between these 2 notes. We're not going to depress both strings and let them crash together. On downbeats, we're going to pick the C note downwards. On the upbeats or the and beats, we're going to pick the G note upwards. This will be steady 8th note timing and alternate picking. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the first 4 measures are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Once we've reached the 5th measure, the bass guitar is pretty much going to double the rhythm guitar note for note, but with a couple minor differences. Most notably, the bass guitar is going to play strictly single notes. When the rhythm guitar goes to the open D5 power chord, we're going to go to the D note located on the A string at the 5th fret with the pinky. Also, at the end of the 6th measure, we're going to add this G note on the last upbeat of the measure with an upward picking motion. And to close out the solo, we're going to pick the open A string on the and beat right after 3, let it sustain out, and we're going to slide from the nut all the way up to the 12th fret on 4, then back down on the and beat. With a 4-count lead in, this is what measures 5 through 8 will sound like on the bass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Let's run through all 8 measures on the bass guitar in sequence right from the beginning. I won't count this aloud as I play it, I'll just give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4.